You want to see a video that teaches you how to make a finish that'll work with either your gray or your brown decor? Stay tuned and enjoy the video. Okay guys, what we're gonna do is we're going to do a finish where you can use your neutrals, your blacks, your whites, your grays, and we're gonna add in a little bit of a brown earth tone. So when all of these colors meld together, they form a really pretty finish that's very versatile. Okay, we're gonna start off 3/4 inch plywood. We've built a nice 1.5 inch edge. We do have videos that show you how to do that. And then we primed it with the Stone Coat Countertop undercoat in white. Now the reason I use the undercoat, I love the product. It's fast drying. I can pour the same day that I paint the substrate, as long as I give it about 4 hours to dry, depending on your temperature. If it's really humid outside, really cold, I'd probably give it 6 hours. If you don't have the undercoat, you can definitely use a latex paint, an acrylic paint, quite a few things that you can use to paint your substrate. I prefer bare paint and primer. I like the way the epoxy goes over it. There's no reactions. It off gases really quick, so I really like that product. So we did 2 coats of the undercoat, sanding lightly in between coats, and now we're ready to pour. The finish that we're gonna do is called melded marble. So when we do a melded marble, we have to use a little more product. Instead of 3 ounces per square foot, I'm gonna bump mine up to 5 ounces per square foot. And the reason we do this is we're gonna tape our edges, and that's gonna hold that material in place on the surface until it gets starts to set up. Then when we pull the edges, it's gonna roll over. So I want that extra material on top so I can get a really nice, pretty finish. Now, if you don't use 5 ounces and you use 3 ounces per square foot, you could still achieve the look, except you're gonna stretch out your pattern. So using more product keeps your pattern tight. Using less product, because you're gonna have to manipulate it, is gonna make the pattern kind of spread out. All right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna tape our edges, and there's a million tapes out there, and we used to use strictly the Home Depot painter's tape, and it's okay, but we would have to do 2 layers to really get it to hold the material and not have leaks. We started using their contractor grade tape, and we really like it a lot more. Now here's a couple of things you have to be really careful with. This is made to go over painted surfaces, and it's not going to be as aggressive and really grab on as this one is. So if your edges are the slightest bit tacky, or they haven't really dried well, be really careful using this, because it might pull off your paint. As long as your paint is dry, we've had 0 issues with this. But if you're not quite sure, I'd probably stick to the blue tape. When mixing up mica powders, there is a really easy way so that you won't get what we call fish eyes. And what that is, it's little pockets of mica that hasn't been thoroughly stirred. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to make a slurry, which will help when you get ready to pour the epoxy into the mica powder. So I've taken mica, just regular mica powder from Stone Coat Countertop. This happens to be pewter. This is isopropyl alcohol, 91%. You can use 99 if you have to. I know 91 is really kind of hard to find right now. I wouldn't use 70% because there's just a little bit more water content in that, and I'm not really sure how that will react. I'm just gonna take the alcohol, spritz it until I can make a slurry out of it. Now I don't want the slurry to be really liquidy. I want it to be a little pasty, a little more than that, not much more. And then what happens is when you pour the epoxy, Now your mixture is going to be more uniform and you're not going to get clumps. All right, so we're going to use Stone Coat Countertop Epoxy. I'm a huge fan. I love the durability, scratch resistance, the heat resistance, and the long open time. All right, so 3 ounces per square foot. We're going to mix in B first. Makes it easier to mix. And we're going to come in with 28 ounces of part A. Now, if you're pouring in a cold environment, you'll want to set your epoxy in front of a small space heater, but warm it up to above 70. So the colors we're going to use in this finish are black dye by Alumilite, white Alumilite dye, and brown Alumilite dye. Love the brown. This is probably one of my very, very, very favorite browns. I'm going to be using pewter mica powder, and then I'm going to use white mica powder, but I'm going to do a little thing different. I'm going to add a little bit of pearl mica powder with the white because I don't want that starkness of the white. Now, if you don't want the pearl, then definitely don't mix it into the white. What the pearl is going to do, it's going to give one different shade of basically a white, but it's almost going to be kind of an ambered color white. So it's not going to be super stark. I really like that combination. Probably about that much, okay? On the white, I added twice as much. Yeah, I think I really like that color. Not a really vivid white, just a hint of pearl. Okay, so I have my epoxy in the cups. You can definitely adjust your ratios depending on how much of one color you want in the finish. I don't want my brown to really overpower the whites, nor do I want the black just to be overpowering. So what I've done is I've taken my white mica and the white dye, and I'm gonna have most of my epoxy is gonna be leaning more to the white side. I don't wanna be able to see through to the wood grain of the stick. I want a very opaque color. Same thing with my white mica powders. The Alumilite dyes are very pigmented. It doesn't take a lot to tint. Again, I want it very opaque. Brown dye. Now, it's a little easier to stay transparent if you want that transparent look. And you can see here, I'm gonna go a little bolder and a little darker. So I'm gonna add just a little bit more of that brown. Now you can see it's a little more opaque. So my pewter and my black are gonna be my second most used color. And then I'll come in with the brown, and the least amount will be my diamond dust. Now, if you do want a little more bling in this finish, definitely add more diamond dust. I want this piece to have about equal amounts of mica metallic bling and the more flat black and the white. I don't want this to be a really, really high bling, but you can definitely bling this up by adding more diamond dust. You could even add diamond dust to your white opaque dye. That's really pretty. You can also add the diamond dust to the black, and you're not gonna see it really bold, but when the light hits it just right, it'll be really pretty. Okay, so let's get this on the board. Time to pour. Our edges are taped up. I left a little bit of the clear epoxy. You can even have it the tinted epoxy, it doesn't really matter. And I'm just gonna pour this epoxy out. And then I'm gonna take a Bondo spreader, and I'm gonna create a kind of a grease coat, we like to call it. And all I'm doing is making it really easy so that when I pour my epoxy, my colors, the epoxy is gonna just flow because there's already epoxy on the surface. You could have done that with any color of the epoxy. It doesn't have to be the clear. I just happen to have clear left in the bucket. Any of the colors is fine. All right, so we're gonna start off, and I'm gonna start off with my black because I want my black to kind of be on the bottom, so when I go to do some of the swiping, it's not gonna overpower my piece. So I'm gonna start off first with the black dye. Now when you do this, you don't want to do a really tiny stream like this. You want to have a little bit heavier pockets so that you get a little bit better pattern, I should say, because you have a little bit more material to work with. Super random, wherever I want it to go. I'm just filling in now the white spaces. Now I'm going to come in with my white, and I'm going to start at the other end. You notice how I keep getting thin on this end because I was starting on that end more. So now I'm going to kind of come down here, filling in the white areas. Again, don't overthink this. Tupping my cups out. Make sure you get all that material out of there. All right, now this is the white that's mixed with a little bit of the pearl. Again, if you don't want that ambering color, that more neutral pearly color, you don't have to add the pearl into the white metallic. All right, now comes the brown. I'm gonna wait for my diamond dust until after we meld all these colors together. We're a little cool in here, so I'm gonna heat up the epoxy before I do the next step. All right, so when you do this, the main thing to remember is you don't want to over mix. You're just gonna take it and you're just gonna really basically just slide that Bondo spreader over the top one time. We're not going over one area more than once if we can avoid it. And you don't have to hit every single inch of it because sometimes it's really pretty, the areas that you don't actually hit with the spreader. And you don't want to do this in any pattern. Don't go down with the same pattern. Be very random as you do this. Make sure you filled in all of your white on the board, that you don't have any surface tension. Now I'm really liking how there's like variations of color. We're pretty light on one end. It makes it look a little more natural, like it's an actual piece of stone, because that's what you see in nature. I'm just kind of looking now to see if there's any surface tension that I missed. All right, now we're gonna come in with the diamond dust. If you don't want your top to be really blingy, you can definitely leave this out, but we gotta add some bling. Now this I'm gonna be really thin with. Now if you want some big pockets of bling, you can definitely do that. All right, so now that we have our bling in, you could do one of two things. You could leave it and manipulate it and let it kind of move on its own, and you'll have a little bit bigger, I guess, strands or veins of the diamond dust, which in some of these areas, I'm gonna leave it like that. Some of the area I'm gonna kind of touch just to kind of smooth that bling out a little bit. Some of them I really like the small vein look. Now, all of this is still gonna move, but because we have our edges dammed up, we'll be able to keep most of the pattern because we're gonna let these edges stay taped for about an hour. So our top is going to start to set. The pattern's gonna be set. And when we do remove the tape, it's not gonna move a whole lot. All right, so I'm really loving this. I'm really loving this, but we've got a few more things to do. Honestly, guys, you could leave this right now and walk away. This is fantastic. I love this finish. Because as it continues to move, it's going to really keep melding just a little bit, but there's still very, very, very distinct colors, and I love that. So you could definitely stop here, but I'm gonna play with it just a little bit more. I'm gonna actually tilt it. I've got the ability to tilt this board. If you're doing obviously a huge kitchen or you're doing a pour in place, you're not gonna be able to have the ability to tilt and manipulate. We've tilted some pretty big kitchens, countertops, and it's been fun. But you don't have to get this really pretty look. But I am going to do that. So I'm gonna heat it up a little bit more, and then I'm gonna tilt. And I don't want to run fast. If you tilt it really fast, it's gonna run really fast and you're gonna get what I call fingers. And it's when your epoxy kind of rolls down really fast and then you get these long looking drips. All right, so now I'm gonna heat this side. And I'm gonna tilt it the other way. Now I'm gonna go up, down. And like I said, I'm not tilting it fast. I don't want a lot of fast movement. There. So I'm gonna just heat that area. Now when I tilt, hopefully that piece is gonna move. Okay, I really like that. I soften some areas by tilting. Anytime you add heat or you add movement, you're gonna take whatever pattern you have there and it's really gonna make it soft. So I really like how this end and the white's got some really soft melded colors. But then I actually like how I have some big bold areas and bold veins here. What I am gonna do is add some fracture lines, my favorite. So I've got a little bit of the brown left over, and I'm gonna start off the table, and I'm just gonna run very randomly some veins across the board. Now, if you happen to get some drips, it's not a big deal. And because this epoxy is still pretty fresh, these veins are gonna get really soft and really faint. If you want your veins to be very distinct and not move a lot, you'll want this to set up in a cup for quite a bit of time until your epoxy gets really stringy. Then when you stretch across your piece, it's not going to move as much. It's gonna stay more a distinct line. All right, so if you ever get these little drips here, especially in a pattern like this where it's already melded, just take your finger and kind of work that little vein in there. All right, I like that. Even just the little bit of time that it's been sitting here, you can already start to see it move and look a little more organic. I'm gonna do the same thing with the black. So basically you can make your veins out of whatever colors that you have left. Okay, now comes the secret sauce. I'm gonna come in with coffee mica powder mixed with 91% isopropyl alcohol at a ratio of 1/4 ounce of mica powder to 8 ounces of alcohol. That's kind of the sweet spot that I like. If you want it a little bolder, you can add a little more mica powder. If you want it a little more faint, add a little less. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna adjust my sprayer to where it's more of a drop. I don't want a fine mist because I want this to fracture in a little bit bigger areas. All right, so we're gonna come over, make sure you shake it, and we're just gonna lightly mist the top. And you don't have to do the whole thing. And then you can actually come in and make veins by using your alcohol. So now I'm gonna squirt really hard and I'm gonna run it across the surface so I get more of a streak. So now as this all starts to meld and move, it'll give some really cool patterns. Now you can also come in here and spritz it with a deep silver mica. I'm gonna hit it just right here because I'm not really liking this one pattern. So I'm gonna just very lightly hit it with some silver and it's gonna break up a little bit of that. Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to do. All right, looks good. Now what we've done is taken these basically 3 colors, brown, white, and black. And because we melded them, we're getting so many shades of neutral colors so that this pattern right here would be great in a house where maybe your kitchen has gray walls, or you want to pull in some gray, or your wood floor is a really deep, rich wood color and you want to bring in that wood color. This is a really fun finish. You could definitely use less material. Instead of 5 ounces per square foot, use 3 ounces per square foot, so that you have to stretch your material a little more than I had to, because that stretching is going to give you a softer finish. Your colors aren't going to be so close together and so compact and so much contrast. So if you wanted to do a little softer pattern, then just use a little bit less material. Besides that, I mean, I think this is a really fun finish. It goes really good in kitchens that have a lot of stainless appliances because of the pewter that's in there. All right, so I'm gonna let this set about an hour. It's about 73 degrees in here. If it were 80 degrees, I would definitely just let it sit maybe 30 minutes. But being that it's cooler, I'm gonna let it set a little bit longer, and then we're gonna pull the tape. Okay, so it's been a little over an hour, actually about an hour and a half, and it's cool in here, so I'm able to go longer periods of time before I pull my tape. So now we're gonna pull the tape, and it's gonna very, very slowly roll over the edges, and we'll get some really cool looks. So you can see the epoxy's running over the edge. That's why it's really important to make, when you make a countertop, or if you're doing an existing pour, if there's any way that you can knock off any 90-degree angles, you really want that to be nice and rounded. And we use a 1/4 inch round over bit as we router, and it helps that epoxy to flow over and not build up a dam as it hits the 90-degree, if it were a 90-degree, and cause surface tension. So we're just gonna kind of let it organically fall. If you have any places that maybe need a little bit of help, you can come get some drips and just use your hand. And that, because now there's already epoxy there, now as it flows over, it's gonna fill all that in a little bit easier. You can actually just come in too and just rub with your fingers, and that's gonna help. Okay, this is one of my favorite times in the epoxy stage. I love to come play with some drips. So if you can see, I've got some really, really pretty drips here, and they've already kind of got a pattern. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna make some really fun patterns. And I can even run those across. I'm not really worried about these drips here because I can just come in and kind of play with them a little bit. Help them be a little bit more organic. And they're still gonna be moving, so I'm not really that worried. I'm gonna come in right here. I really like this. That looks like fun there. And you can also just add it to your edges, because I know that this is gonna continue to flow. I'm not really worried about what is right here, because this is gonna continue to flow over, and that's gonna give me a fun edge. I'm gonna come down and get some browns. Now, this is also fun. These are brown colors coming over, so I'm gonna scoop the browns, and I'm gonna come over here to where it's a light white color, and I'm gonna add some contrast in there. That's gonna be fun. All right, and I can also come in if I wanted some of the actual color that's dripping. I can do that too. And come in here. Let's see, what do we do down here? Is anything? Let's see, I'm gonna grab, I've got an area right here I think would look really good. I'm letting it quit dripping and then bring it back across. Yeah, I really like that. That's a real pretty look. All right, so now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna come in and get some of these lighter colored drips and start helping these edges a little bit. Okay, I had a little bit of bubbles. Come back in there, hit them really quickly. All right, I hope you liked this video. I hope you liked the colors that we used, the ability to use very neutral colors and get a great finish. Let me know, leave me a comment below. Also, if you liked this video, if you would please subscribe to our channel, hit the bell for future notifications, and that way you know when we post a video. All of these materials that we use today, the epoxy, the tints, the colors, the micas, all of that is available on our website, RK3Designs.com. Also, check out the website for our online classes. We have the schedule posted for the year 2021. Also, Online Epoxy Pro, your online source of learning a lot of information, very detailed information. You can check that out, onlineepoxypro.com. All right, guys, until next time, remember, don't be scared, move forward, and be creative.